All right, is this officially the end for Tiger Woods? After undergoing yet another surgery, fans are definitely disappointed to see him set back even further. And the clock is ticking. Tiger turns 50 later this year, which does make him eligible for the Champions Tour. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But we've also got Tiger expressing what is his biggest regret after a long list of injuries and issues and surgeries. It does make you wonder, is there something that Tiger regrets? Is there something that he would have done differently? But even more importantly, what does the future hold? Tiger recently gave a little bit of an indication, but it was a bit cryptic. So we're going to kind of break that down and see, are we going to see him playing or moving into some other capacity? And of course, now we also have plenty of fans who are speculating what might just be the last time we see Tiger play any competitive golf. A big final farewell, potentially coming at the Open Championship in 2027. So let's go through. We're going to break down the whole timeline, everything that Tiger and others have said to see if there's any indication of what the future holds. And like I said, really kind of digging in and saying, does golf really need Tiger Woods? I mean, I think we all want to see Tiger Woods out there playing competitively, but do we need it? Some of the numbers kind of point to the fact that maybe we don't. Maybe the game has a point here where it is moving on officially from Tiger's influence in a lot of ways. So there's definitely a lot to break down. Of course, first we want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And guys, Titleist is always looking for ways to help you shoot lower scores. And of course, you guys know the golf ball can make a big difference. So Titleist Alignment Integrated Marking, or AIM, are alignment lines precisely printed on your Titleist golf ball. Both AIM Performance and AIM Enhanced are available on the Pro V1, Pro V1X, and Pro V1X Left Dash. So here's the difference. AIM Performance is a tour-inspired 105-degree line, which is available in black, red, blue, or pink. And AIM Enhanced is a distinctive 3-line alignment design. And most importantly, AIM technology has been found to help golfers be up to 35% more precise in lining up putts, as well as helping with that confidence in lining up on the target off the tee. So you have to see these AIM designs to truly appreciate them. So visit Titleist.com. You can see all the AIM markings that they have available there. Check them out. Grab a sleeve, put it in play, and see if it helps you with lining it up, because, hey, we drop a couple more putts. It means the difference, for many of us into shooting the scores that we want to shoot. So let's quickly get into this and bring everyone up to speed. I think any Tiger news is news that kind of makes its way through the golf community very fast. So I doubt we're breaking anything to anyone here. But if you did miss it, Tiger did release a statement saying that he underwent yet another surgery. And exactly from Tiger, he said, "After experiencing pain and lack of mobility in my back, I consulted with the doctors and surgeons to have tests taken. The scans determined that I had a collapsed disc in the L4-5, disc fragments, and a compromised spinal canal. I opted to have my disc replaced yesterday, and I already know I made a good decision for both my health and for my back." And Tiger, in that, and with his team and everyone, no one released any type of timeline. But as you can imagine, and as many of us already kind of know, we're pouring it on at this point. His list of surgeries and what he's been through, many people just reference the abuse that his body has been through the years. Sure. Yes, he may be physically recovering and capable to swing a golf club again, but that is a far cry from having the ability to play at the highest level. We're talking about PGA Tour. We're talking about major championships. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a totally different thing. And it becomes a question is like, are we being a bit delusional to think that at this point, after just one surgery after another, there's even the potential chance to see him play in that capacity again? Yeah, no, I think that a majority of the golf world, after that last appearance on green grass, they're convinced that the best days are gone and we're not going to see him again. We got a glimpse of him in TGL, which was a different Tiger. It's an indoor event versus the Tiger that we were used to seeing. So I think a majority of the golf fans, including myself, I mean, I'm in the majority. I think I'm in the majority of people who think that there was no hope for him to ever come back and be as competitive and win. I was listening to a bunch of other podcasts on this recently. Trey Wingo did one. He was talking about, if Tiger had a cart exemption, yes, right. He would be
he'd probably come back and win some PGA Tour events and even a major. And I even disagree with that. I mean, there's so much talent on the PGA Tour that's far better than Tiger is now, and even after this surgery will be. So I think, I don't think we're going to see him.
And I think the reason why we even have this conversation, because it would seem common sense would dictate that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just because Tiger has surprised us so many times. The fact that he returned to competitive play after the car accident, and the fact, him winning that last Masters after everyone thought he was done, you almost feel like he's fooled us too many times, right? Mm-hmm. He's too many times we thought he was done, and here he is, and he's back. So that, I think, is why we have to have the conversation. But you bring up a couple of good points, and I want to talk about his future and where he might fit, because maybe it is certain types of capacities. Maybe it's the TGL where there's not a lot of walking and he could swing a club and we could still get a little bit of a Tiger fix, because I don't think we're asking for much. We're, as fans, a lot of us are not asking for him to compete in 30 events a year. We want to just see him a couple of times, and we will talk about that PGA Tour Champions, because there is, a possible motivation for Tiger to add to his, USGA championships and come back and win a senior major.
Yeah.
A senior US Open, something like that. So there, I think there's something worth talking about. But talking about that timeline, really just kind of looking anywhere for some indication of Tiger, of what he said, if he'll be able to swing a club again, if he'll be back. And Tiger, in his own kind of cryptic way here, he took to Twitter and he was responding to a tweet from his own team, Jupiter Links Golf Club, and he said, "I'll be there for every match. Looking forward to seeing everyone on January 13th for our home opener." And, Will O'Lowry Golf, he goes, "Hands off my sticks." He had a little joke there because he was saying he was going to take his clubs. But I think the wording was, very carefully chosen there, saying, "I will be there."
Yep.
That does not mean he's going to be playing.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that is where the TGL was smartly lined up, where we saw, 4 players on the team so that you could have only 3 and a guy could sit out. And we even saw towards the end of TGL last year a couple of times where we had one-off contracts signed where guys were on the team for one day to come in and play. So we might see some fluidity there. But like I said, it does indicate where Tiger's focus, which we're going to talk about later in the show, where his focus might be going forward in a lot of these business ventures, Tomorrow Golf, TGL being one of those. So I just wanted to take a quick look and just a quick kind of recap of his entire kind of history with a lot of the injuries that he's been through, a lot of the surgeries he's been through. And I mean, it's a long list, so I'm not going to go through the full thing, but a lot of and this is going to weigh heavily into when we talk about what Tiger said was his biggest regret in just a second. But we think of these back surgeries because of the fact that that's been the last couple rounds, but really Tiger didn't start to have back injuries and back surgeries until late into the 2010s, 2011. Prior to that, it was predominantly having to do with his knees and his legs. I mean, even going back into college, his Stanford days, he had his first surgery on his left knee, and that was to remove some cysts, but he had many ACL surgeries. I'm looking 2002, 2007, 2008, 2008, later again in 2002, surgeries in 2008, all on the, knees, ACL repairs. He had a left knee sprain in 2011. He had, some stuff we saw, the elbow stuff coming in later, but it wasn't until 2014 that he had his first major reported back issues, back spasms and things like that. So his knees in a lot of ways held him back. And the reason I bring this up too is because Tiger has been largely scrutinized, especially now by trainers and things like that, of saying like, because of the fact that he kind of revolutionized the game with his training ethic. And we've seen it before, like his, the way he would play and he would run and he would weight train, he would do all these things. And it's been scrutinized of like, did he do too much or was he doing it the wrong way? And this is important because a lot of people will learn from what he did and take that into account with golfers now and their longevity in the game. But, after that, it became a laundry list, of course, of back surgeries. Then you had the car accident, and that was a dramatic damage, as we all know, to his leg.
Sure.
Again, not telling you guys anything you don't know, but I think it is important to kind of look back and say that it hasn't always been his back. It may feel that way right now, but it hasn't always been that way.
No, it hasn't always been that way. And the thing I keep thinking about with Tiger is like golf doesn't really need Tiger anymore. You know, like he hasn't really been. He wasn't even at Ryder Cup. His presence wasn't even there, right? You know, he's going to miss the father-son, the PNC Championship. You know, that event coming up, obviously.
He hasn't officially announced that, but
most likely.
Yeah, I mean, after this surgery, I think I would guess that as well.
But just like, you know, I think golf's in a really great spot. I mean, I'd hate to say that, you know, Scottie Scheffler is the next Tiger, but we're in a spot where we're seeing guys do Tiger-esque things, and the game is so healthy, and, you know, viewership and events, and we saw how great Ryder Cup was with fans and people getting into the game. So I think Tiger's done everything that he needed to do to grow this game and get it to where it is. Would it be nice to see one of your favorite players of all time, someone you grew up with, come back and play again, even if it's the Champions Tour, which I know we're going to talk about, but yes. But I think if he just hung it up and he said, I'm never going to step on another golf course forever, then I think the majority of people will be like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah. And we're going to get into all that in a minute. We're going to talk about, and I want you guys to weigh in too, to say whether or not you think that the game needs Tiger. We're going to talk about those ratings. We got a lot to dig into there, but weigh in and say, like, do you think the game needs it? I think where there's a little bit, we're tainted towards it a little bit, is you got to understand that if you're around our age, generationally, Tiger means a bit more to a lot of us because he's a large part of the reason, if not the reason, why so many of us got into the game.
Yeah.
You think about that Tiger boom in the 90s and things like that, it carries more weight for some of us. And I would say there are probably some younger fans who it doesn't carry as much weight for, who maybe they saw just the tail end of the Tiger's career. Maybe they saw his dramatic Masters win, you know, his last Masters win, but it doesn't have the same weight to them.
Yeah.
But just kind of following that train of thought, looking back, and again, this is where it'll kind of going into and proving whether or not he, you know, going forward, whether the game needs him, is just understanding how long it's really been since he's played competitively. I just pulled some stats. Interestingly, since the start of 2022, Tiger's played in only 11 events. He's withdrawn 3 times from those events. He's missed 4 cuts, and he's only played all 4 rounds just 4 times.
Wow.
So 4 Sundays is effectively what we've gotten out of Tiger since 2022. It's quite some time. His last real start, I would say, in a real competitive, tournament would be the 2024 Open Championship at Royal Troon. He missed the cut. He really hasn't played in any other PGA Tour caliber type of event since 2024. He did play, as you mentioned earlier, in that PNC Championship with Charlie. We're going to talk about more with his future in a second, and Charlie, and how that motivation serves that. And of course, we all know the TGL events that he participated in.
Right.
But I want to get to that regret, that really important thing of Tiger sharing a regret. And what this comes from, recently, the podcast Dan on Golf with Dan Rappaport, he talked about a conversation that he had with Tiger where he asked kind of very directly, because again, going back to how hard he trained, it becomes a question mark. And a lot of young golfers want to learn from that to strike the right balance of training to be a champion without pushing it so far that you hurt your longevity. And in that conversation, this is what Dan said. He said, I remember a conversation that I had with Tiger at one point where I was like, when you look back on all your injuries, is there one thing that you would tell yourself not to do? One thing you regret? And he said, yes, I shouldn't have run so much. He used to run miles and miles a day, and his knee took a beating. That's another thing. That's a huge issue. So this is why, kind of coming full circle, why we talked about all those early injuries, the knees and stuff like that. And I think there's interest that A, it's on Tiger's mind enough that he has a quick answer to one thing he regrets. I mean, I think that's a tough thing to answer. But B, it also shows that it really wasn't anything having to do with his back. You know, he talked about the strain it put on his knees, but yeah, you look at Tiger's old regimen, it was something like run 3 miles, play 18, you know, run again. Run again. And that over time can put strain. And even going back when we're talking about in the mid 90s, you didn't have the same technology even in running shoes at that point. And he could have been, you know, doing damage. And that's just not to say like across the board to write off running for everyone, but it's just striking that balance that I find so interesting.
I think of all those years of Tiger hitting those violent shots, those violent cut shots out of bunkers, and just the amount of force that guy puts into his lower back and his knees on his swing makes me just I'm convinced that there's physically no way he'll ever get back to that. He can't.
Yeah.
You know, it's just broken down.
And you just think like the running, just being on his feet, walking, you know, every time you walk a golf course, it's 5 miles. So it's a lot. So I still got a lot I want to get into here. I want to talk about whether or not this is, with all of that buildup, is this, yes or no, the end for Tiger Woods, and what the future holds for him, because there is a lot of ways that Tiger can still be very heavily and deeply involved in the game and structuring the future of the game, you know, without having to play competitively and continue to put his body through that. So let's do a quick word from our sponsor. We'll get right into that.
All right, golf season's still going. FootJoy's got us covered with the latest performance and apparel. They've got everything you need for whatever weather conditions you may encounter. So Thermo Series for the cold, Tempo Series where it may be a little warmer or a little cool, and of course the Hydro Series to keep you nice and dry. In fact, we're heading to the Outer Banks next week for 5 rounds of golf, and with all of these styles and golf gear that we have from FootJoy, we're ready for anything. Wind, rain, or sun. Whatever's thrown at us down there at the Outer Banks, we are set thanks to FootJoy. So why trust your golf gear to anyone else? Trust your game with the latest from FootJoy. Learn more at footjoy.com.
All right, so we got to go. When we talk about whether or not this is the end, we have to go by the information we have, because we're not getting a whole lot, you know, we're not getting a timeline from Tiger, but we've had him through the years, because this has been on loop of these surgeries and stuff. We've had him express some of his own personal desires. One of those that I think is important to understand is that Tiger has said many times before that he does not want to be a ceremonial golfer. He doesn't want to be out there just taking a victory lap and missing cuts and just to be there for the ceremony of it. I will say, aside from maybe one thing, which a lot of people are talking about, this 2027 Open Championship. Put a pin in that. We'll come right back to it. But Tiger also famously said he's a competitor. He's a deep competitor. He's famously said that he doesn't enter a tournament unless he thinks he can win. Now, I believe that. I believe that's how he feels. I also believe that he's entered some tournaments, you know, because of his relationship with the sponsor. I think like the Genesis.
Of course.
Right? But I get it. As a competitor, he's already painting that picture. He's not out there to be a ceremonial golfer. He's thinking win if he's going to be out there. And he's not the type of guy who I guarantee, even at this age and with all those excuses of all of the injuries and surgeries, he doesn't want to be missing cuts. So I don't think he's driven by that. He also doesn't need the money. Obviously, you know, sometimes some guys are on that Champions Tour because, you know, it is finance driven in some ways. You know, they're there to keep, you know, and these guys are the same guys. They weren't making a ton of money. They don't have the same purses, you know, back then on the PGA Tour as they do now. Some of these guys are not billionaires like Tiger, so they need that. But Tiger obviously doesn't need that. But we do have to talk about that Champions Tour. So Tiger's 49. He turns 50 in December. That officially makes him eligible for the PGA Tour Champions. And, you know, although he's never really outwardly expressed an interest in that, you could make the idea that, like, if he can get his body healthy, he'd still be younger than most of the guys out there. I think that Tiger could be competitive there. You know, it's not going to be a walk in the park. He's not just going to like bowl over these guys. There's a lot of great golfers there, but he could pick up a couple wins, and it could lead to playing into some senior majors. You know, he could add to his USGA championships total by winning a senior US Open. So there's possibility there.
But what if he doesn't? You know, like what if Tiger's missing cuts on the Champions Tour and he's getting obliterated by 65-year-olds? And like, is that a way to end your career? You know what I mean? Do you think that's in the back of his mind? Like, what if I can't even compete with Bernard Langer?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be on his mind that he's at least not going to do any more damage to himself. He's got to be healthy enough to play. I think a healthy enough Tiger is as good to hang with almost any of these guys that are out there on the tour right now.
I bet the Champions guys would welcome it. I think it would, personally, I'm just speaking for me. I mean, I think it would increase ratings. It would
could increase purses.
I mean, you could probably bring in a whole boatload of new sponsors. It could change the world for the Champions Tour, and make it more of a watch, and you're going to see more people our generation tuning into the Champions Tour events. So I think that would be all great for that tour, but is that exactly how Tiger wants to end his career?
And evidence that guys want them out there. Just, about a year ago, Ernie Els famously said, he was talking about like his conversation with Tiger Woods, and he said, I've said, please come and play. And I think it could only be beneficial to him. He will get himself in golf shape. You can ride a cart without any shame. And if there's one guy that should be able to drive a cart, it's him. And he can get his ass back in shape. So he ribbed Tiger a little bit there. They're good friends.
Yep, sure.
But Els brings up a good point. Tiger could go out there. He could play in the cart. I still think, based on his performances in TGL, the number one thing holding Tiger up is the fact of having to walk, 4 rounds in order to be competitive.
Yeah.
So I think if he had the help of a cart, I just think he's in this weird timeline in his life where he still probably personally feels too young, that he doesn't want that. He's a competitor. He doesn't want that extra assistance. He doesn't want what might feel to him like an asterisk next to any win.
Yep.
But he's also, as Els says, like, I don't think any of us would blame him for it after what he's been through, the surgeries, the car accident. Nobody is going to hold it probably against Tiger, maybe except for Tiger. So you've got all that. And then the other indication is, like I said, many people have been saying that 2027 Open Championship, St. Andrews, as we've heard Tiger say, it's his favorite golf course. It would be a spot where, as you guys can all imagine, there wouldn't be a dry eye in the house to see him waving a final farewell to golf on the Swilken Bridge. I think it would be a storybook ending to a career that will never be replicated. So I would not be surprised if it's on his mind to stay healthy enough to make that his last competitive round of golf, because as much as, we want to see him on the PGA Tour Champions, he doesn't need it. I could never imagine him being a PGA Tour PGA Tour Champions week in, week out journeyman. He's not doing that.
Nope.
Not playing in 15 events.
Nope.
It would be a pick and choose based on sponsors or whatever. Playing a couple, qualify his way into senior majors, maybe playing a few senior majors based on his health. But I think that it could be very correct that the 2027 Open Championship could be the last time we see him competitively.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that, I believe the last time at St. Andrews, he kind of did that farewell tour, right? He was walking up 18. I think he might have even missed a cut. I might be wrong about that. Maybe I think I'm right, but he walked up, he was waving, and then a lot of the announcers and people were saying that this could be the very last time you see Tiger Woods here at St. Andrews in the major. But on the flip side of that, if there's anything to give him hope or something to strive for and work hard and get back in shape, maybe that's it.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, like that at that time is us guessing. It wasn't an official announcement. This will be my last, round. But then we move from there to say, like, does golf need Tiger Woods? And as you brought up earlier, in a lot of ways, what is it that would determine or quantify that need? A lot of us would say, like, well, the health of the game could be seen in its viewership and its ratings. We recently saw a tweet from Josh Carpenter. He said, overall, the PGA Tour averaged 2.275 million viewers for its Saturday-Sunday telecast this season, which is a 22% gain from 2024. That's showing growth.
Yeah.
That's showing growth there. And what we have is now we have guys like Scottie Scheffler who are able to take over into that dominance, position that Tiger Woods had. I mean, we look at a lot of the records that Scottie's setting, a lot of them, the ones that he's matching or coming close to or whatever, are Tiger's own records.
Yeah.
By his age, the number of times he's won and things like that. So, you have Scottie doing that. And on top of that, you still have plenty of future Hall of Famers bringing a lot of attention to the game, like Rory McIlroy, etc. And the game itself heading in these new directions with new viewership. And you see the emergence of YouTube golf for the younger audience. So I don't think that golf hangs in the balance. The future of golf hangs in the balance quite as much with Tiger having to be in there versus out as it did in the past.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, we mentioned earlier, Tiger, there are ways that he can still have a very big influence over the game. So if we look and we say, if Tiger was to take this as an indication that, playing career is kind of over, where does he settle? Because at 50, he's still a young man. He still has a lot of years that he can have influence over the game. We look at Jack Nicklaus still has a lot of influence over the game now at his age. So what are we going to be seeing Tiger doing for the next 40 years, right? And there's a long laundry list. Tiger's business ventures are wider reaching than a lot of people think. You've got TGL and Tomorrow Sports, and Tomorrow even I've seen recently getting into some other avenues besides even golf and other professional sports. He also he's got his hand in Pop Stroke and opening those places up, the restaurant business. You've got his the Woods in Jupiter, and his recent launch of his new clothing line. Sunday Red is something that you've seen other guys like the Shark, Greg Norman, with his clothing line.
Yeah, right, true.
These are things that can be, each one of these could be enough of a second career, a second life, and he's got his hand in all of those things. And on top of that, he even has TGR Design, which is his golf course design company, like you see with Jack Nicklaus. So there's certainly no
Tiger's
shortage of things that he could do. And he's doing a lot of those out of passion because he's a billionaire. He doesn't need the money. It's just proves that Tiger can still be a face of golf, can still have an influence over golf without playing competitively. He's also expressed a strong desire to be what he calls a sports dad. I can see him starting to pass that torch, assuming that Charlie wants it, which his actions seem to indicate that he does. Charlie seems as involved in the game as, it doesn't seem like it's something that he's pushed into or feels obligated to. He seems like a genuine love for the game. And I could see Tiger really spending some time supporting that in every possible way. As I think Tiger's motivation is to get healthy is these PNC championships, just to give a chance to win with his son. I think that would mean a lot to him. But even if he can't play, supporting him, being on the bag for junior events, I think these are the types of things that fire Tiger up now.
Yeah, I agree. And even one more piece on that PNC. I mean, think about it. Like, this is your big opportunity to put your son on a main stage. And unfortunately, he might not be able to do that this time around. So that's got to be weighing on him. That's got to be hurting Tiger a little bit, that Charlie won't be, seen in that light, on television, that, everyone tuning in to see him. So, yeah, man, you're right. He's got a lot going on for him. I know he's going to continue. He's a busy guy, and he's going to continue that way. He's going to be in the game of golf forever, no matter what.
Yeah, and we'll be waiting to see if he does make any announcement on that PNC. But based on this surgery, I can't imagine that timeline that he'd be ready to go in just like 6-7 weeks or when that comes around. But you guys let us know in the comments, do you think, is this it? Was this surgery the final straw? Do you feel like this is the end competitively for Tiger Woods? And if so, what's your own take? Is it something that will move the needle? As once Tiger was the needle, would it move the needle now to say he is done playing competitively? I'd love to hear what you guys think. Drop them in the comments below. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you in the next one.